Within the grand expanse of history, where the rise and fall of civilizations intertwine, lies an ancient record that chronicles the legacy of a powerful and noble people. As the sun sets over Africa's vast savannas, stories emerge of mighty kings and beautiful queens, their dark, radiant skin reflecting the richness of their heritage. The Bible, a book of enduring significance, holds within its pages the hidden truths of these ancient narratives. Join us on an immersive cinematic journey through time as we uncover stories long forgotten by much of the world, yet forever imprinted in Africa's sands. Before we dive into the heart of our discussion, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our upcoming videos. We have an array of fascinating content on the way. Now, let's embark on this extraordinary voyage to unveil the history of our Black and African ancestors. According to the Bible, all people today are descended from Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. This includes black individuals and those with dark skin, whose lineage traces back to Ham, one of Noah's sons. Shem and Japheth, Ham's brothers, represent the Semitic peoples, Arabs, Jews, and Syrians, and the Japhetic peoples, Europeans and Asians, respectively. The Bible identifies Ham as the forefather of African and black people, consistently associating him with Africa. The Book of Psalms even links him to the ancient Egyptians. Ancient Jewish and other historical traditions also affirm Ham's African lineage, reinforcing the idea that his descendants established roots across the continent. The very name Ham carries meanings related to burned or dark in Hebrew, Aramaic, and other ancient languages, an allusion to the color of his hair and skin. In Genesis 10:6-14, the genealogy of Ham's descendants is detailed, often referred to as the Hamite people. The Bible describes Ham's sons: Cush, the father of many African nations; Mizraim, the progenitor of the ancient Egyptians; Put, also called Phut, linked to various African peoples; and Canaan, whose descendants settled in regions that later bore his name. The name Mizraim is still used by Arabs, Jews, and Syrians when referring to Egypt, as it was named by its founder. Cush, Ham's firstborn, gave rise to multiple African civilizations, including the Ethiopians and Nubians, formerly known as the Kingdom of Cush. These groups share a common ancestry, and their historical impact is vast. Further, the Sumerians, believed to be descendants of Nimrod, Cush's rebellious son, are thought to have ties to ancient Babylon. Additionally, populations in South India, as well as groups from Africa such as Malians, Eritreans, Kenyans, Congolese, and Gabonese Bantu peoples, are also linked to Kushite heritage. Biblically, Cush is frequently associated with Ethiopia, Sudan, and Africa at large, signifying the term's original meaning, Ethiopia or black. Mizraim, another of Ham's sons, is regarded as the ancestor of the Egyptians and other North African peoples, including the dark-skinned Tuaregs and Berbers. Among Semitic people like the Arameans, Arabs, and Israelites, Egypt remains known as Mizraim. Psalm 78:51 recounts how God struck the firstborn of Egypt, referring to them as the first fruits of manhood, in the tents of Ham. Ham's third son, Put, was also known as Phut, meaning landmark, and is associated with hunting clans in Africa. Put is believed to be the progenitor of the Black Libyans and other African groups. Regarding the so-called Curse of Ham or Curse of Canaan, many have misinterpreted the account in Genesis 9. The Bible states that after Noah became intoxicated, Ham dishonored his father by not assisting him and instead mocked his nakedness before his brothers. Though this passage is open to interpretation, it was considered a serious offense at the time, as honoring one's father was nearly a sacred duty. In response, Noah cursed Canaan, one of Ham's sons, not Ham himself, nor all his descendants. The misinterpretation that this curse extended to all African people is a historical distortion with no biblical basis. It is vital to acknowledge that Ham and his other sons, Cush, Mizraim, and Put, are recognized as ancestors of various African and black populations. Through biblical genealogies, these figures are linked to ancient African civilizations, including the Egyptians, Ethiopians, and other great nations. However, while the Bible provides a historical framework, it is not the sole source for understanding the origins of Black and African peoples. Scholars rely on multiple disciplines, including archaeology, linguistics, genetics, and oral traditions, to construct a broader and more accurate picture of human history. As our knowledge continues to expand, it is crucial to engage in ongoing research and dialogue to better understand the origins, migrations, and cultural developments of Black and African peoples. It is also essential to recognize that any attempt to use biblical narratives to justify the notion that Africans were cursed is a grave misinterpretation. The individual cursed in the biblical account was Canaan, not all African people. Ham, considered the ancestor of African and South Indian populations, was born before the flood and lived an exceptionally long life. He is believed to have witnessed the 5th and 6th generations of his descendants. Like his brother Shem, Ham likely lived around 600 years or more, though his exact age is not recorded in the Bible. The location of his burial remains uncertain, with theories suggesting Ethiopia, Nubia, Mesopotamia, or even Egypt, a land rich in secrets and ongoing archaeological discoveries. The Book of Jubilees, an ancient Jewish text, provides further details about Ham's later years and the divisions of land among his descendants. This text, once considered authoritative, describes Ham's son Canaan settling in Shem's territory, modern-day Israel, against the wishes of his family. According to Jubilees, Ham, Cush, Mizraim, and others opposed Canaan's decision, as they believed the African lands were meant for Ham's lineage. Despite their protests, Canaan remained in the land, defying his father and brothers. The Book of Jubilees also credits Ham with founding the first post-flood city, which he named Malatuk after his beloved wife. As with all ancient texts, these stories should be examined within their historical and cultural contexts, avoiding misinterpretations that reinforce falsehoods or injustices. The Bible offers a complex and layered account of history, and it is our responsibility to approach it with careful study and discernment. The influence of the Bible on the understanding of Black history. The Bible has long been a central text in shaping the historical, cultural, and spiritual perspectives of many societies across the world. Its influence on the understanding of Black history is profound, particularly in the way African and African-descended peoples have interpreted their origins, identity, and role within the biblical narrative. From early interpretations of biblical genealogy to its use in justifying both oppression and liberation, the Bible's impact on Black history is multifaceted and deeply significant. Biblical genealogy and African identity. One of the most significant ways in which the Bible has influenced the understanding of Black history is through its genealogical records. The story of Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, has been widely used to categorize different racial and ethnic groups. According to biblical tradition, Ham is often associated with African peoples. His descendants, including Cush, often linked to Ethiopia, Mizraim, Egypt, Put, Libya, and Canaan, have been historically connected to regions of Africa and the Near East. The identification of Ham and his descendants with African and Black populations has been debated among scholars. Ancient Jewish and early Christian sources often viewed Africa as the land of Ham, reinforcing the connection between biblical narratives and African ancestry. However, the interpretation of these passages has been subject to manipulation, particularly during colonial and slavery eras, where the so-called Curse of Ham was wrongly used to justify the subjugation of African people. The misinterpretation of the Curse of Ham. One of the most controversial and damaging interpretations of the Bible in relation to Black history has been the idea of the Curse of Ham. In Genesis 9, Noah curses Canaan, the son of Ham, after an incident in which Ham sees his father's nakedness. Over time, this curse was erroneously extended to all of Ham's descendants, despite the fact that the curse was explicitly placed on Canaan and not on Ham himself or his other sons. During the transatlantic slave trade and colonial era, European theologians and scholars distorted this passage to justify the enslavement of African people. This interpretation was widely propagated, leading to a theological basis for racial discrimination and systemic oppression. However, modern biblical scholarship overwhelmingly rejects this misinterpretation, emphasizing that the curse had no racial connotation and was never meant to justify slavery or racial hierarchies. The Bible and African civilizations. While biblical narratives have been used to oppress, they have also played a role in empowering African and African-descended communities by affirming the historical significance of African civilizations. The Bible references several African nations, including Egypt, Ethiopia, Cush, and Sheba, highlighting their importance in biblical history. The Queen of Sheba, for instance, is depicted as a powerful African ruler who visits King Solomon, signifying Africa's engagement with biblical figures and traditions. Ethiopia in particular holds a special place in biblical history. The Ethiopian eunuch in Acts 8 is one of the earliest recorded African converts to Christianity, indicating the early spread of Christianity into Africa. This has led many African communities to view the Bible as a foundational text for their religious and historical identity, reinforcing the idea that Africa has always been an integral part of biblical history. The Bible and the transatlantic slave trade. The transatlantic slave trade marked one of the darkest periods in Black history, and the Bible played a complex role in this era. European slave traders and colonialists often cited biblical passages to justify the enslavement of Africans. Verses such as Ephesians 6:05, "Slaves, obey your earthly masters with fear and trembling," were taken out of context and used to promote the idea that slavery was divinely sanctioned. However, enslaved Africans also found strength and resilience in the Bible. Stories of deliverance, such as the Exodus narrative, became a source of hope and inspiration. The story of Moses leading the Israelites out of bondage resonated deeply with enslaved Africans, who saw in it a reflection of their own struggle for freedom. This led to the development of a rich tradition of spirituals and religious practices that emphasized liberation and divine justice. The role of the Bible in Black liberation movements. As African-descended peoples fought against slavery and oppression, the Bible became a powerful tool for liberation. Figures such as Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, and Sojourner Truth invoked biblical imagery to argue for the abolition of slavery and the dignity of Black people. The Black Church, deeply rooted in biblical teachings, played a central role in the civil rights movement, with leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. using scripture to advocate for justice and equality. In Africa, movements such as Ethiopianism emerged in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, emphasizing the role of Africa in biblical prophecy and advocating for self-governance and liberation from colonial rule. Ethiopianism was based on biblical passages such as Psalm 68:31. Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hands unto God, which was interpreted as a divine promise of African redemption and empowerment. The Bible as a double-edged sword. The influence of the Bible on the understanding of Black history is both complex and profound. While it has been misused to justify oppression, it has also served as a source of strength, identity, and liberation for African and African-descended peoples. The Bible's narratives of resilience, faith, and justice continue to inspire movements for racial equality and historical recognition. Understanding the Bible's impact on Black history requires a careful and nuanced approach, recognizing both its role in historical injustices and its power in shaping cultural and spiritual identity. By reclaiming and reinterpreting biblical narratives through an informed and critical lens, Black communities can continue to draw inspiration from the scriptures while challenging harmful misinterpretations of the past. Thank you for watching. We hope this discussion has deepened your understanding of the Bible's historical narratives. Don't forget to subscribe and enable notifications for future updates. Stay tuned as we continue exploring crucial biblical themes and their significance in history.